Okay, ladies and germs, this contestant is autumn fern, or Japanese shield fern, but around these here parts it's normally known as autumn fern. Dryopteris erythrosora. It's in the Dryopteridaceae family. It's even hard for me to say. So this is a nearly evergreen fern. It hangs around depending on how hard the winter is. It's called autumn fern because when the new growth comes out, it's a real pretty bronzy kind of color, like an autumn leaf kind of color. Really sturdy kind of fern. This one is probably, it's been on the ground about a year, I guess, so it's pretty young. You can see how big the fronds are. I mean, way bigger than my hand. Real stout, kind of. It's not real delicate like some ferns are. Just, you know, again, like most ferns, it needs some shade and some winter protection. It doesn't like to be really, really dry, but it will tolerate some wetter conditions, real humusy kind of soil that we've got here. Really good landscape plant. They really don't have too many pest problems. I haven't had the deer bothering it, although they've been bothering other things in this area. I have seen them where they get some age on them and they get kind of unwieldy and kind of big and kind of out of scale with everything. So sometimes you just kind of have to renovate them, cut them way back. But they're easily propagated from divisions because they'll make kind of a colony. Oh wow, look at the spores on the back of that. But this is autumn fern, real good landscape plant, a nice ground cover for shade areas or north-facing walls like this is. Dryopteris erythrosora autumn fern. Our next plant for this week is not this one. It's this one or this one or this one. Well, it's actually both. The next plant is Echinacea purpurea, or purple coneflower. And you might be thinking, number one, Mr. Camp, man, you picked some really sad specimens this week. Well, yeah, I have, but it's late in the season and that's all I got, so bear with me. So this is purple coneflower. Hey, wait a minute, that's not purple. That's like golden. So yeah, they're all called coneflower, or Echinacea, really is probably the better name. And they used to always be purple, and then somebody got to doing some breeding with them, and they've come out with some yellows and some pinks and some mauves and some really, like, I don't know, peach colors. A lot of stuff in between, a lot of really cool stuff, but it's perennial, but it's not a very long-lived perennial. And it's called coneflower because of this cone that kind of arises out of the middle. And this is very stiff and bristly, and actually when they get dry, when the blooms are really spent, they get really bristly and they'll eventually mature, and these little bristles are actually individual seeds. And birds, some of the seed-eating birds will devour them. So it's good plant to naturalize. But one way that you can tell coneflower from others is by the veins in the leaves. So if the flowers weren't here and you were looking at this plant and this plant, you know, just not the flowers, the leaves are really pretty similar. You can kind of see them here. This is not coneflower. This is Stokesia laevis, or Stokes aster, and this is Echinacea. And if you look, it's easier to tell on the backside, but well, I say that, maybe not. So on the top of the leaf, if you can see the almost parallel vein, you see this vein on the top, I guess, or on the left, this, the middle vein in the center, and this one on the right. They've got these long parallel veins. That's fairly unique to Echinacea for this leaf shape. where on the Stokesia, they just have, nice, here cuts up. They just have this one center rib down the leaves. And there's a little difference in the leaf color. These are typically darker green, especially this time of year. And guys, I'm sorry these are so beat up, but it's, you know, approaching Thanksgiving actually. But these are really colorful, and if you can get them to persist over the winter, then they'll, you know, perform well for you. One thing I've learned the hard way is that the more you cut the old flowers off, it's a technique we call deadheading, the better they'll do. And a lot of things are like that. So you can see where I've cut these back. This was, you know, this whole plant was looking really just showcase quality when I first got it, and we use it kind of in a seasonal decoration of the front door, but not now. It looks like crap. But as I've cut these old flowers off, you can see where I've cut it. It's putting out new flowers here and here, and you know, if we have enough warm weather here in early November, that may go ahead and show some color. This one's the same way. You know, I've cut it back and it's starting to push out. This one is a young flower right there, obviously. This one's not. Oh, there's another one coming up too, I see down in the middle. So yeah, I know there's another one. So the more you deadhead these, the better they'll perform. And deadheading is true even for the black-eyed Susan, the Rudbeckia. The better you can deadhead, the more they'll come back. I did pick up a tip from our British counterparts. Some of them will actually just sow a whole new crop of these, almost like annuals, every year, but it takes over a year for them to get to be this size. So it's a really long-term project to get a fresh crop of Echinacea. So you know, for those of us who don't have greenhouses and expansive gardens and tons of time to fool with it, just go buy you some every year. Anyway, that's Echinacea purpurea. Well, even that one's considered purpurea. Purple coneflower. This plant is technically not herbaceous. I've got a few plants on the list that are house plants. They're tropical plants that are, I would say, sort of trendy right now. Plants, you know, all plants go through cycles and trends. And this is one of them that's really popular right now. This is called Ficus lyrata, or fiddle leaf fig, and it's definitely not herbaceous. It's woody. You can see the woody stems way back in there. And I want you to get a sense of how big these leaves are. Oh, there's my granddog. That's Willow. The leaves are huge and are sort of shaped like a violin. So that's the reason for the name. Ficus lyrata is in the Moraceae family. It's actually in the same family as edible figs, which are also called ficus. This is a really huge family. It's everything from tropical trees like this to edible figs, Ficus corica, to the little creeping fig, which we use as an ornamental. It's called Ficus pumila. So this is a house plant in this area in Georgia. It's probably not good outdoors until you got to very South Florida, probably Miami or Fort Myers. I'm not even sure about Fort Myers, to be honest. It might not be warm enough there. This one has done rather well. I bought this as a 3-gallon plant about a year and a half ago, and it was rather small. And I potted it up and fertilized the hound out of it, and has grown rather well. It's multi-trunked, so it was real bushy at first, and I've taken some of these canes off and made some cuttings. And I'm going to take these little sprouts off too, and probably make some more cuttings. I hate to let stuff go to waste. Again, this a house plant, they like bright indirect light. these windows in this area are south facing, which is about the brightest side of the house from the indoors perspective. And I typically will slow down the water. I won't fertilize them during the winter. I don't want to overwater them. They're not going to use as much water during the winter, although, you know, the dry air of the house will tend to dry them out. I've got this in a heavy ceramic pot because it is so tall. I mean, it's gosh, about 6.5, almost 7 feet tall. They can get really top heavy. So if it was in a plastic pot, it would probably fall over every time the grand dog walked past it. So I've got it in the ceramic pot, and I've got to dress it up with some pine bark. I tend to do that just to cover up that bare potting soil. And I'm going to limb it up. Now, I just brought these in. I brought all my houseplants in just a few days ago. And I've been told by the lady that works here during the day, my wife works from home, that we've had a few little lizards hitchhike in, which I'm sorry, I couldn't help that. So we've got a few extra residents for the winter, but this has been a really good house plant, and I've really enjoyed this. And anyway, Ficus lyrata, fiddle leaf fig, another good one. All right, back at the mailbox planting. This is Gaura lindheimeri, and I believe this one, this cultivar is called Twirling Butterflies. Now, it's pretty much gone out of bloom. It's right smack in the middle of October, and we've had a really nice cool spell, so I think it's beginning to shut down. But these little fine stems are frequently covered with delicate little pink flowers that I can understand how it got the name Twirling Butterflies. But it's kind of shrubby, and the literature says it likes well-drained soil. I mean, it's from Texas and Oklahoma, so it kind of gives you an idea. Well, in Louisiana too, but it kind of gives you an idea of its natural preferred habitat. One thing I have noticed is that it's kind of floppy, and I have kind of surrounded it with other things like the Secretia and the Artemisia there to support it. I think if I didn't have those other taller things to kind of bunch around it, it would have, you know, sections of it will just kind of flop out, and then it's not great. One thing I would improve the performance a little bit is an occasional deadheading, which in something like this, I mean, you could spend hours individually pruning. So you could take some shears, some hand shears, and just give it a light haircut. You see these, you can kind of see the finer growth right there. So I'd cut it like about in there, knock it back. But really pretty, really light, airy kind of color, wispy, cottagey look. Good looking stuff. It's kind of the centerpiece of this area. Although it's all kind of mushed together now, but it was glorious in its day. Take my word for it. No common name. It's just called Gaura, and there's a white version at the campus near the greenhouse. But the foliage is about the same. It's got these little fine leaves. If you can kind of see how small those leaves are. But and it's sort of woody too. You can kind of see way down in here the woodier stems. And again, this one, kind of like the Artemisia, you can cut it way back. And I wouldn't do that until late in the winter, and then it'll rejuvenate. Now, the reason I wait on stuff like that is because, you know, we frequently will have some nice warm days, even in the middle of the winter. You know how the winter is so fickle here. I mean, it can be in the 20s one day, and then 3 days later it'll be literally in the 70s. Frequently warmer, and that, you know, so if you cut something back, let's say now, or in the middle of December even, and we have some warm days, it could try to start growing. It will start growing actually, and it will get damaged, at the next cold spell. So I just wait till it's really late in the winter, so it doesn't, if it does warm up a little bit, then it won't get hurt too bad. But that is Gaura lindheimeri, and that's in the Oenograceae family. This plant is Glandularia canadensis homestead purple. Now I learned this one as Verbena canadensis homestead purple, so that gives you an idea how things change over the years. Things evolve, and the thinking is updated on some plant species. But this is a really good perennial for hot, sunny, dry locations. It performs very well, blooms all season long, unlike many perennials which only bloom for a short time. It acts more like an annual, in fact, than it does a perennial. But this is kind of derived from some roadside weeds, and sometimes you'll see some forms of this even along the interstate highways and road easements along the way. Now, homestead purple doesn't only come in purple. There are several other cultivars, including this one called apple blossom, which is a really pretty pink, and one called homestead red. There are others too, but they all perform well in the same conditions. So that's Glandularia canadensis homestead purple.